Our present fight is very much connected to previous fights and struggles that those who come before us fought in order for us to be here.
The mere fact that our ancestors and the people before us are able to leave us property, we want to keep our land the same way that our ancestors left it to us.
What we do is we look for a route with the fewest collective impacts to the community, and that's what we have here.
We don't want y'all to build a pipeline
in our community.
This community, our community. We don't want it. We do not want it.
What I am saying to you today is this. There's a strong possibility that this pipeline will be in your community. Strong.
Well, one of the things about Boxtown that a lot of people don't understand is that when slaves were free, they migrated to Boxtown. And the reason why they call it Boxtown is because many of the homes were made out of boxes from the trains. And so it's a very, very, very rich history for African Americans.
The main concerns about this pipeline start with the people. Right now, they are misusing eminent domain to actually take people's land. And they're doing this to folks who parents bought this land or loved ones got this land in the early 1900s when black folks really couldn't own pieces of property.
The Byhalia pipeline, the proposed path right now is through South Memphis, and the portion of the groundwater system there is that there's a shallow groundwater. It's not protected by clay. It is more prone to contamination.
Eminent domain is an absolute last resort for us. And remember, we're not taking land, we're getting the access to install and maintain the pipeline across properties. There are 3 non-commercial landowners that have not signed agreements. And we are continuing to listen, we're continuing to try to negotiate, and continuing to try to find mutually beneficial agreements with them.
In one interview, that the reason they chose the route that they did because it was the path of least resistance. So it's part of what's been historically put things that others don't want in African American neighborhoods, whether it's chemical plants, refuse collection sites, polluters, and that district has quite a few of them, and now pipelines.
What should have been said is that we looked for the path with the fewest collective impacts because it impacts the fewest amount of people. And so it's important for you to know that this pipeline is not about race, it's about safety.
We're significantly concerned because this pipeline would go through a predominantly black community, lower wealth, lower income, and yet resilient. The pipeline company does not have all of its permits. They are on appeal for the aquatic resource alteration permit in Tennessee, and we are asking the Biden-Harris administration to rescind the nationwide general permitting and force them to use an individual permit that would include community voices.
I've also written President Biden and asked him not to have that allowed and to disengage from the permit that was issued and have it be held up until they can do more study on the potential adverse effects on the community.
We expect to move forward. We have a pipeline that has received our environmental permits at a state and federal level.
I think this community is standing up and saying no more. We've had enough. For the past 50 years, this specific community in Memphis has received whatever the rest of Memphis and Shelby County would dare not accept in other places.
The folks whose lives have been the most expendable have been people of color, indigenous communities, and the descendants of enslaved people in our country. And we have to choose in this moment to say no longer, no more.